All right, welcome again to another of our E3 talks. Our E3 stands for Educate, Engage, and Explore. And today we're going to get a little bit of education, and then hopefully you guys can all get out there and explore your family trees. We have Don Robinson here, and he is here to tell us a little bit about genealogy and what he knows to do, give you some pointers and some tips, and then also to let you know a little bit about what's going on here at the library. Or others might do that too. So anyways, without further ado, Genealogy 101 with Don Robinson. Take it away, Don.
Thank you, Gretchen. Before I get started, a couple of side notes. I've been doing genealogy for about 45 years. Some of the things that I've written is in the Maine Genealogical Society 1790 project. I've also written some documents that have gone into the New England Registry, and I'm pretty familiar with North Carolina, South Carolina, and the South. And I'm also familiar with operations in Virginia and in the wonderful state of Maine, which I'm really familiar with. I'd like tonight to introduce what we're doing, but before I do, I've got a lady who needs to explain to us what's going on here in the library concerning the Oregon Project. Alex, I'm sorry.
I'm Alex Smiley, and I am the cataloging librarian here at Jefferson County Library. Last year we took over Family Finders, and we have selected the books from that collection that pertain to Oregon specifically, and a couple of the surrounding states as well. We are currently in the process of moving them over to the blue building next to the library, where they'll be housed along with the rest of the Oregon collection. There are also genealogy items pertaining to Oregon. We have microfilm and microfiche, and we have a machine that reads, and we can print copies from there. Due dates of that happening are not set yet, but they will be happening this spring.
Thank you. I'm going to specifically talk about what's available here in Jefferson County, and more particularly what's available here at the library. Could I go to the next one, sweetheart? I'd like you to meet my protege, Mr. Cactus. He'll be giving you input throughout the slide presentation. He'll be giving questions and statements that you may have questions about, or he'll answer them. Okay, go to the next one, Carmen. Again, this presentation is brought to you by the library here in Jefferson County, and the goals are, I can't read that. The goals are to show people what's available here and how to use the free products that are available here. I think that's really important. Okay, Ancestry.com and Heritage Quest are found in this library. Both of those products are free with your library card.
At the library.
At the library. If you were to buy Ancestry, it's a monthly fee. But you can get it all here for free. The things that you'll find in Ancestry.com, can you read those?
You want me to read that?
Yeah, I can't see it very well.
Church records such as baptismal and attendance and marriages. Census records from 1790 to 1950. Mustered records and pension records of all previous wars. Family histories and location histories. Probate and will records. Gravestones and find a grave references, emigration and migration records, and land records.
Now, what that means is those records are open and available to see original copies. In fact, you're going to see original copies in the next slides that were taken from these sources. It is amazing what's available and what used to be available. Carmen? Library has acquired many local histories. That's in her book. They're trying to get more local histories. And they want to help patrons. And I think Alex, Laura, and Gretchen can all help you if you have questions that can't be answered. And if they can't find an answer, I know Alex will ask me at church on Sunday. Okay? I want to talk about a starting point. A lot of genealogists think that they go walk into the library and boom, it's just going to happen. There's always some preliminary work that has to be done. And that first starting point is always yourself. Okay? In genealogy, we can't do anything unless we know us about ourselves. If I have a person that wants to join the SAR, since I'm the registrar for the one here in the Bend area and Madras area, first thing I want to ask, do you have a birth certificate? Because that's the first thing I need. Most people from North Carolina was one of the last states to put birth certificates. That's 1909. So if you're after 1909 in any state, they have a birth certificate for you. Or they have one that's a birth certificate that's done after the fact. And that's has a really important work because the person needs that when they go for Social Security. So that's why the states have done all that, so that Social Security can be administered. Marriage records, the same thing. My wife and I got married. We have a copy of our marriage certificate. And I have one of all 9 of my children that have been born to us. The next thing we want is christening records. Anglican or Presbyterian sometimes will have a christening record. The next thing is a death record. We like to have the people get their death records of their mom and dad. In most states in the United States, you can always get a copy of your mother and father's death certificate. Most of the time you can get one for your grandparents as well. After grandparents, sometimes it can get iffy. Colorado's a mess. But they do have them. It's just a little harder to get them. Okay. I want to show some examples of family recs and family records. This is a church blessing certificate. I put my own up there because you look at the record, I'm an Anderson by this record, even though my name is Robinson. I was adopted by my maternal grandparents in Eugene, Oregon, and therefore my name became Robinson. But my actual father is listed on this record, and my mother is listed on this record. So a blessing certificate is accepted like a birth certificate, especially one that's as detailed as this one is. So blessing certificates always work in lieu of birth certificates. My birth certificate that I have is in my pocket. I have a Oregon one that says I'm Donald Robinson, but it does not show who my original parents were. So this blessing certificate is important to me. What's really important to me was this gentleman that performed the blessing. I didn't know who he was. I said, Shirley, my wife, who's this Archie Anderson? Come to find out it was my grandpa. I had to ask my aunt who that was because she would know him. So this record turned out to be really important to me, and it was used in my SAR application in lieu of a birth certificate. Okay, go to the next one. This is the best. This is a birth certificate from South Carolina. I don't care where the state is or where you're born, your birth certificate, the birth certificate is the best document we have in all genealogy. Okay? And even if there's a mistake on it, we just live with the mistake because it's a birth certificate. Okay? Go to the next one. This is a Colorado death certificate. I just had to stick that in there. Colorado death certificate gives a whole bunch of pertinent information. This one, there was a big argument in my family, in the Joy family, that I'm a member. My grandmother was a Joy. And they were saying this and this and this, and I was saying, prove it, prove it, prove it. His death certificate says that her father was William Joy and gave me her mother's name as Nancy Ellen Klein. That was critical to get her maiden name. Go on to the next one. This is a marriage license. Marriages are fantastic. If you were going to join the SAR or DAR and was to use a line, and your line has to go to a male member in both societies who served in the war, unless you're one of the very few women that were included in records of the Revolutionary War. Somewhere you're going to go to a guy if you're a girl. And with second to do that, you've got a mom and dad somewhere, and you have to have the marriage record of that in order to make the transition. Marriage records are wonderful records, usually gives the maiden name of the woman, and that is the most critical thing in genealogy you can find. Otherwise, you're stuck with Mrs. Piper or Mrs. Cactus for the rest of your life and not know that her maiden name was really Mrs. Weed. Her last name was Weed. Go to the next one. Court records. This is a court record for me when my name was changed from Anderson to Robinson. And it's in the Eugene Register Guard, just like that. Okay, go to the next one, Carmen. Family Bibles. I want to talk to you about family Bibles, coming from a genealogist point of view. Aunt Mary kept the best family Bible in the world. The date on her family Bible is 1950. That was the date it was printed. But her family Bible goes all the way back to 1725 with all of the family relations of everything going on to 1725. There is no way that genealogical proof would allow that family Bible to be used for anything past the people that would know what was going on. What does that mean? If you try to use a Bible in 1950 for somebody who was born in 1825, the genealogical proof would not be there. You couldn't use it. But for a person that's born in 1952 or in 1948 or in that time period that the Bible is made, good record and acceptable in genealogical proof standards. I have now I got to tell you a story about that. My stepfather is from Randolph County, Alabama. Randolph County, Alabama in the 1850s was created, Alabama was created by the Cherokee land grab. His father came to Alabama to acquire land near Phoenix City. I don't know if you know where Phoenix City, Alabama is, but it's on the border by Georgia. In that record, in that land grab, Simeon bought property in Alabama. We were able to find all the records, the land records, and how the transaction of the property went all the way to my dad. But what was cool was the family Bible. Family Bible gave dates of marriages, dates of birth, and all the things that Alabama never did. And to have that Bible record was fantastic because I was able to prove everything through Census Records and land records that it was correct. The Bible was dated in 1874 was the date on the Bible. So I figured everything from about 1850 up to 1898 was probably pretty accurate in the book. And then supported it with documents. That's the value of a family Bible. Go to your next, Carmen. Photos. Can't get over photos. How many of you have a box of photos at home? How many of you have names on the backs of those photos? Okay. A photo without a name on it is no good. Okay, and with that said, I want to tell you what happened. My Bailey family comes from the great state of Maine. Do you know how many Baileys are living in Maine in 1860? They're all over the place. But my sister had a picture of her great Aunt Eva. Well, how many Eva Baileys are there? Certainly a lot. But on the bottom of the page, it had a symbol from this company that did photographs in Bangor. So the person that did the actual pictures' name was on the bottom of the picture. Whoa, that narrowed my field down. They got to be living somewhere around Bangor, Maine. Well, that took away Washington County and all the other counties and then set me perfectly in Penobscot County. So right at the bottom of picture, sometimes you get who did the picture. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay. Go to the next. DAR and SAR you will find in your home. How many people have a member in DAR or SAR? You can get their copy of their records. They'll have one, or they should if they've kept it, and you can use that to do genealogy research from. The advantage of doing it through societies like SAR, DAR, is the proof documents have already been submitted and can be acquired. But if you don't have them and you're starting at the beginning, it gives you a really good blueprint to start from. This is SAR, my SAR form. And so my children, all 9 of my kids, my grandchildren, can connect to me, and then they're in the society and have their genealogy records. Go to the next one. Okay, Alex, could you read that on the left side for me over there?
Once we have garnered all the data from our personal collections of information, it is time to start tracing your family further back. Ancestry and Heritage Quest provide good sources to continue your search. Ancestry Library Edition, I'm going to add that in, is available free through the Jefferson County Library. Individual accounts with Ancestry are also available for a monthly fee.
Okay. Once we've exercised all of our stuff on a personal note, we're going to probably be at Grandma and Grandpa at least. When we get to Grandma and Grandpa, records become harder. The first thing, what does that say, Carmen?
Remember, information about people who are living is protected information.
Okay. Don't spill the beans on somebody who's alive. We avoid it in genealogy where we can. If you want to get it from somebody that's alive, talk to them. That's the best source. Okay? Go to the next slide. I want to start with Grandpa's death record. I want to find as much information from that death record that I already have. And from that, see the example below? Go to the next one. Oh, back one. Is that it? Yeah, no, there. Okay, probate record and rails. I want to talk about those two, but they're related to, those records are available in Ancestry and in Heritage Quest. Somebody has gone through and taken a picture of those records and placed them in their database. That's why these are some of the best, and especially for America and Mexico. I remember I was part of the 1940 project. Anybody here been a part of that project? Where I did 14,000 names, mostly in Louisiana and Wisconsin. They wanted me to do Wisconsin because I speak Polish. And there were gobs of Polish records in Wisconsin and around Milwaukee. So those were the counties that I worked on. And I did the Frenchies down in the area in Louisiana. And I don't know anything about French, just did them. So these records and wills from people are in those records, and so are probate. Anybody, do you all know what a probate record is? So a probate record is a record where somebody's land or somebody's property is disseminated to the people in the family, or somebody that has a debt to pay in the family to take care of something else. Probate is how my property will be dispersed to my children and to the people that I owe debts to. And then the court will write down how that's done. These probate records are fantastic records, especially in the South. Sometimes you don't have the privilege of having a date. You just know that they were part of the family. Go to the next. This is an example of Tombstone. Tombstone Records are part of the Find a Grave program. Find a Grave is trying to get all the tombstone records of all the cemeteries in the United States. I like tombstone records are considered a primary source, more particularly for the date of death than the date of birth. But in lieu, sometimes we don't have anything else. We can use the birth date until we find a better record. I can't see that. I wanted to show that this is Mary A. Rackley. It says wife of William Singleton. And it gives her birth date, her death date. What do I like about that? The last name Rackley. That's what's really important to me, is I get mom's maiden name. In our society, mama's maiden name can be lost to us forever. Because up until recently, we were of a patriarchal society. Our censuses were even a patriarchal society until recently. Go to the next one, Carmen. Newspapers. I had one guy, we were racking our brains to try to get him into the SAR, and I didn't have a document that verified that his grandfather was named George Lewis Leet. I didn't. And then he pulls out this, and then he says, well, here, now we got a secondary source. These papers are considered secondary sources. I need a primary source. Well, with a secondary source, I have more avenues to find a primary source. And we figured out when he died, because it says when he died, we were able to put the date in and found that it wasn't George Lewis Leet, it was G.L. Leet in the death record. Now, when we found G.L. Leet death certificate, we were able to tie George Leet to the G.L. Leet and were able to use the document, and it was passed by the SAR. Primary source is a death certificate. But primary death certificates are only good for death dates. Remember that. Birth dates, you can use them.
It's a secondary source for birthday.
This gave a good date for his birth. Do you understand what I'm saying? If you look at a death date, that's at the ends of the man's life or woman's life. There could be 75 or as many as 90 years between the two. Birth date would be better found with a birth certificate or some other source that's closer to the date of which she was originally born. Not that I won't use them, but I'll want to find a better source if I can. Go to the next one, Carmen. Okay. Can you read that, Alex?
Census Records. We want to perform a census history of that dead ancestor and cover as many years of that person's life. From 1790 to 1950, the United States government conducted a federal census every 10 years.
Okay. What does the first blue line say, Carmen? The first blue box.
Example, Iris Cactus was born in 1919. She died in 2000. There would be 4 available census records to find her. 1920, 1930, 1940, and 1950.
1950, April 1st.
Yeah, 1960.
1950.
Is April 1st this year.
50
this year. What's the problem with this document? What did I say in the other blue one?
Her last name was Weed.
You're only going to find her, like the early ones, as her maiden name.
That's correct. Yeah. Until her birthday.
Depending on when she buried.
Yeah. So, I said she was married in 38. So she's going to be, you're only going to find her in 2 places, 40 and 30, with her maiden name as Cactus. Before that, her name is going to be. So, do you understand what I'm saying? Census taker doesn't know that she got married 2 years after the census was done. Go to the next one, Carmen. Okay. I was having some problems when I submitted my paperwork. And my problem was I had a grandpa that went by Albion J. Bailey in Maine, and he went by James Albion Bailey in Colorado. The record here showed that his name was James Albion Bailey. The other record showed that it was Albion J. Bailey. But the birth date was the same. So the birth date that was done by the one record holder and the birth date at his death record was exactly the same. We knew it was the same person. Census records are really cool if you do a census study on them. Census study means you try to find every census record, including state and federal census records, for the person you're looking for. And if you work with me, I'm going to do that. I'm going to get a timeline, and that's how you create it. Start your timeline, and then place every record in there. What'd you say?
That's at least an easy name. I had you help me with Krajewski, and I did 10 censuses. I did New York and federal, and every single census, their name was spelled differently. All 10. I only could track them that they were the same because of husband and wife and all the children have the same first names consistently.
In Daniel C. Robinson's pension record from the Spanish-American War in 1848, he is listed as Robison in the document. In the same document, he's listed as Robson. In the same document, it's Robinson. And even in the same document, it's Robertson. Take your pick. First off, Daniel C. Robinson, I'm talking about, didn't learn how to read and write. So whatever the guy put down on paper, he just put an X on it. Send it through. Okay, go to the next one, Carmen. Okay, this is really important data, and if you do not know this, this is a thing to learn external to genealogy. So I want you to, if you want to write this down or you can get a copy of this, this is really an important tool to understand. So could I have a volunteer? Gretchen, could you read that first line to us? Can you see it?
Yep. Census records between 1790 and 1840 include head of household only. Family members are identified by a number, not a name.
What does that mean to you?
Because there's a little point there that says, these people are this old, it's a female between the age of 40.
It only has the father, the head of the household, and a woman.
Unless it's a woman's head of the
A
household.
woman head of the household. Patriarchal society that we have. The head of the household, whether it be man or woman, can be found in records before 1850. What does the next one say, Alex?
1850 census. First time households were identified by name.
The 1850 census, just before the war, they switched from being identified by a number to being identified as a person. Was the greatest thing that ever happened to our genealogy processes. Because for the first time, we saw Maddie Brown listed in the household of Jared Brown. Does not mean that he is the son, but it means he was living in the household. The downfall of the 50 census was it doesn't identify their relationship to the head of household. But usually it's a son or daughter. Usually. I want to say usually because you guys will say, oh, this time. And yes, I have too. Usually the woman is listed in the second line under her husband if both are living. It also gives the age, so you'll know if it's a young couple or an old couple. And you can sometimes you'll see that you'll find Maddie 51 years old with a 2-year-old. That's probably a grandson or granddaughter living in the household. Well, as a rule, women don't conceive children at 50 years old. But that's just the way my brain works genealogically. Doesn't mean it's not possible, but I would want to prove that I could probably prove that. But that happened a lot. Do we understand what I'm saying so far? Okay. What's happened next that's really important?
1870 census is the first time Black Americans were identified by name and family.
That's correct. In 1870 is the first document, if you're working with people who are colored, in America. It was the first year that their records were identified literally at all. They had slave records before that in 1860, but in 1870, their families are identified. Oh, that is a really important deal. Does this make sense? Let me tell you, though, I did a lot of research when I was in Chicago with the black community. And their records were always going to Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. This Memphis, Tennessee. That's where most of the records came from. 1870, the guys in Mississippi were sloppy. So they're not as good in certain areas. But for the most part, that's a good record. And I had a lot of families go back to that. Okay, what's the next one down there?
1880 census, first time children were identified with parents.
Now, Matthew is 5 years old, and he's listed in John, has a big word head of the household in his column, and little John is listed as son on the census record. This is the first time that we know now that John is the son of his father.
That's the year of the big Native American census, too.
Yes, it is. And that, I've had some experience with the one up in, there's a big reservation not far from Eureka, California. And I was doing some work for a lady that had her family came from the reservation. She was trying to prove that she was of Indian heritage. She was. Yes, she looked like me. But her mother, in fact, was from that reservation, and we found all the stuff we needed in that 1880 census that was taken in California on that reservation. Good point, Alex. What's the next one? 1900, I think.
1890.
1890. What's unique about the 1890 census, Carmen?
Well, over 90% of it was destroyed in a fire.
You don't have it.
Really? You can't find it?
It was destroyed by fire before it was recorded.
Before it was recorded, it was destroyed in the archives. And so we do not have but 10%. And if you're lucky to get in that 10%, 1890. What is cool, though, the state census in New York happened in 1895. The state census in New Jersey happened in 1895. The state census in the Connecticut, I think, was 1898, but I can't remember. But there are state censuses that'll fill in some of the gaps that the 1890 federal census lost. What's the next one at the bottom?
1900 census, first time month and year of birth was included for all individuals.
State census is getting better. In 1900, they didn't give you I was born on February 12, 1952, but they wrote in there February 12th. No, excuse me, February
1952.
1950, well, yeah, or it would be before 1900. But 1900 is the best census that we have. And this date is usually closer than a death date for most of the people that died. So its record is considered more reliable than the death certificate, and you try to match them up. What's really bad is if the census taker was really lousy and just played that off, then it makes more work for you as a genealogist. Are there any more on that line?
Nope.
Those are the major changes in 1910, 1920, 1930, and 1940, which I'm familiar with all those. There isn't a whole lot, some added things that you can add to it. These are the major changes that we worry about in genealogy. A couple of sidebars. I'm going to mention this because it goes back to that first census. If you have family in New England, one of the lines in the column doesn't have a number. it says from whence came. It's in line 7 of the 1800 census. Wow, what a gold mine. I have a James Smith who's living in Bangor, Maine. Oh, where did he come from? The 1800 census said he was from London. He was from New London, Connecticut. So he went from Connecticut to Maine. He's probably got a land grant from his service in the Revolutionary War. I've only found those in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine. But you can find them. Another thing you have to know. I use the 1840 census a lot, especially with that Joy family that I was telling you about earlier. They tried to put my Joy was this John Joy living in its town, and yet it wasn't. So I wrote him a letter. I said, in the 1850 census, William Joy has a son, 14, a son, 16, a son, 12, and a son, 18. There's 5 of them, 5 boys in a row. And they're listed in the 1850 census. Well, find me where 5 boys are in the 1840 census, because the youngest would have been 3. So then you tell me that John Joy is supposed to be the right guy. He only has 1 kid. Where's the 5? Well, he's not there. He's in the other county next door with all 5 of those boys listed in the 1840 census. I used that 1840 census, which was a bunch of dashes, to prove to them that they were looking at the wrong person. Records can be used if you're really cagey at understanding and taking the truth in them, and not adding any more to it than there is.
You have to become a detective. And then you can't also get too caught up on spellings either.
Yeah, don't worry about, if you're close, you're good. And names will change spelling between census records. And especially if you have a Russian name or a Polish name or German or one from Netherlands, which freaks me out all the time. Go on, Carmen. Okay. This is a record where we were proving that we were talking about the same person. Census records really make good secondary sources, and you marry it up with a good source. The good source is right here. It's a township record. They're the best records that New England had. Township record or a town record or a town clerk record, it's all the same thing. They were records that the clerk went around to the household, looked at mama, and said, give me the names of your family. So she popped her, and your birthdays, and where you were born, usually in the column. And it's done just like a pedigree chart or a family group sheet. And those are mostly found in New England. Go on, Carmen. I can't read that. There's a big white spot.
So it's about church records.
Ancestry and Heritage Quest have a collection of marriage records and are networked to find grave for marriage and death records. They are each connected to the United States Social Security application records.
Oh my. Social Security application records that are found in Ancestry.com were a lifesaver. Do you know what they did? A black woman is Mrs. Baker, Harriet Baker. She died in 1954. Her application for Social Security says that her maiden name was Chelsea. And her father is Roman Chelsea and mother Emma White. I didn't know any of that, and neither did the guy I was helping. those are fantastic records, and thank you. Those are fantastic records. I want to also note that many of the Quaker records are in their findings too. The old Quaker records. And they're connected. I've used all of Ancestry for finding all of those records. Go to the next. Go back, sweetheart. Get this. I got to read that. What does that say, Carmen?
Everything in Ancestry and Heritage Quest are indexed. This means that when you look up a person by date and location, all pertinent available records in their database pop up for use. That saves a lot of time.
Wonderful thing about indexing. Have you ever looked through an unindexed record book before? What a mess. I was doing some records in Polish of a cathedral on not too very far from where the war is going on, in a town called Zamość. Brzezinski, all the different names. It was unindexed. I'm not that good in Polish that I could just work it all out. But if it had been indexed, it would have been wonderful. I had a friend who was doing some work in the town of British Honduras in Chicago. None of the records have been put in this form. And he spent days going through a microfilm, finding his family in British Honduras. Go to the next one.
Military records.
I love military records. Muster records, pension records are available through Ancestry and Heritage Quest. Some of these records can be the best. Carmen, what does that little blue thing say?
The following is an example of a military record.
Okay, go to the next one. This is an original pension record of 1776 of my great-great-grandfather, Samuel Bailey. If you were to look at that, it's really easy to read. The military did great things, and of course what I was interested in is what's marked in red. Military pension records are available, and I took this one right off of Ancestry.com.
I like them too. Like, I have more experience with the World War I and World War II, but you also get personal information, like how tall they were, what color eyes and hair they had, and it just makes them more human to me instead of just names.
I had one say, and I have this son that I don't like, and his name is Thomas, and he's 19 years old, and he's good for nothing. And that was in a pension record in South Carolina. His son became a minister in the community and became one of the most humble men of the community. But his father had this fetish against him, obviously. And that was believe it or not, that was in his pension file.
Wow.
Yeah.
In other words, don't give him any of my money.
What does that say at the top,
It's a
Alex?
huge advantage for an individual to have access to an experienced librarian. They can brainstorm ideas
Okay. Now I'm going to put your librarian on the spot. Alex, raise your hand. She is as good as this as I am, almost. She hasn't been doing it. I've probably done it as long as she's been alive, but she's really good at it. And she can help you in so many ways. And she's a wonderful asset to have here. So don't forget to use her. And the use of these tools are free here at the library.
That's on location, correct?
Yes. Okay. And that includes Alex. You can come and use her here or set a time and work with her once she gets approval of Gretchen.
Not me.
No, Jane Ellen.
Jane Ellen.
Okay,
Once she gets her off her books, her stores, what is it? Her library set up.
My special collection.
Her special collection.
okay, go to the next one. We've reached the end of our deal. Are there any questions?
Yeah. So what if you know a family's history, you know their names, the maiden name, the married name and all that, but you have no records about it? Can you do anything with that?
Yes.
Yes. First thing I would do is put the name. I would put it in the Ancestry.com base and see if a record pops up that you don't know about.
Yeah. So come on down and we'll get you signed up on the...
And I'll bet you, we used to make a bet when I was working with Family Search in Salt Lake that if I couldn't find one if I couldn't find something within 20 minutes, I'd give you a takeout for a hamburger.
We're not going to make that deal.
Okay?
I'll give you
I'm just saying is that
No, a coffee. A cup of coffee.
there is, there's so many tricks to the deal. You promise me you give me all the stuff that you can get, I can take you back.
'Cause I have,
What's your maiden name? What's your surname?
my name is Crowley.
Oh, good English name.
Okay.
Very English name.
The family history is it's from Ireland.
Well, it could be, but it's got that L-Y on the end.
So, and then my grandmother's name is Telford.
Telford?
Telford?
Do you know what Telford, another name for Telford is? Taliaferro.
What is that? That sounds Italian.
No, I'm just saying is that when I'm searching, I'm going to look for Telford can be very easily be a Taliaferro. It got Englishized when it came to America. Probably Taliaferros are so well known in Virginia and they're so rich and well-to-do that they changed their name to Telford to avoid being connected with them. They were scoundrels.
Oh, yeah, that fits.
Scoundrels.
Scoundrel.
All right.
So that I don't want to be tied with Taliaferro, but I want to be tied with Telford. Oh, that's close enough. We'll just call ourselves Telford. Had that too with Polish in my own family. I have some Polish relatives in Salt Lake City. They call themselves Lavender, but they're really Lewandowski. Lavender's a whole lot easier to say than Lewandowski. Does that help you out? I want you to do me a favor. Take her up on the deal. Bring the name in and let's see if we can pull it out.
All right. Okay.
Tomorrow.
All right.
And if they can't, you call me, Gretchen.
So,
Or call Alex.
my great-grandfather settled in Ashwood in 1888.
Ashwood, Oregon?
And he came
Up there?
As far as I know, he came from Chicago.
Oh, that's a
First
good
to
place to
Sky
come,
Valley,
but
and then to Ashwood.
it doesn't matter. I'll find him somewhere.
But I don't know. His grandpa was alive when I was young, so I know him. But I didn't know his wife.
Okay. Well, we might even be able to find that. Any other questions? Gretchen, did I cover the bases that you wanted me to cover?
That was awesome.
Going to family members is important too, for sure.
Yeah, talking to your family.
Talk to your family if you have any alive. I started young enough I was able to get important information on my grandmother before she passed because her name, first name was different on her birth certificate than it was in the censuses.
Oh, that never happened.
That never happens, even though she was only 9 months old. So it's just a lot of work, but having living family to talk to was able to answer a lot of questions as well.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Dawn. I really appreciate it. And like he said, come down to the library. We've got all kinds of things that we can help you find your family history on. I've been doing a lot more digging since I knew that we had ancestry. So I'll come in and I'll be like, I gotta find this name, or I'm gonna work on this branch today. And it's been quite amazing to find out some interesting things. So I want to thank you all for coming, and for those who are online also. And we are finished, I think. But if you have any questions, write us or let us know.
This is a really basic introduction. I could go through a class that taught you how to do Ancestry.com specific, how to use the last name without a first name, how to do things through dates, how to look up stuff within the deal that nobody would think about doing, how to look up a name for a first name. I don't know their last name, but Gretchen was her name, and she was living in this town in 1845, so she might be in the 50 census in that same town, right, and pick her out by the first name and then work backwards. So there's all kinds of tools that you can use within the system. There's whole classes on that.
Yep. So thanks again. And if you guys have any other questions, help yourself. And for those of you who are here, there are snacks and drinks over there. Please take something. But thank you very much, John.